DigiMarCon Mid-Atlantic. Ryan Brock, your podcast host again. I just got off stage talking for about 40 minutes. So my tongue's ready for a nice nap, but that's okay because I got one of the most charismatic dudes I have ever met right here, Triag Nidger. He's here to share a little bit of a preview into what he's going to be sharing with the attendees here. It's a framework that you've been working on. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So, a big thing I always tell people, I just grew up in a small business family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing to grow up in that environment, but it was super stressful as well because as a young child, you knew that there's something called the rent payment at the end of the month, right? And it was weird. You didn't really know what it was. And I always remember we were across the street. We had clothing stores, and we were across the street from like a Modell's, a McDonald's. They always had lines. We never had lines. Right. And the first time I ever saw us have a line is when my dad put out this rack of jackets. And instead of pricing them for $100, he priced them for $99. Right. And at the time, I'm like, you're losing $1, right? Little kid brain. And then I realized that, wait, there's actually like a psychological marketing trick there, right?
Sure.
Our brains think of 99 as less than 100, right? And that sort of got me fascinated. Like marketing and branding, what is this thing? Finally, something I can control, pull a lever somewhere. And since then, I've just been researching as much as I can. But I often found that things were stuck behind either a paywall, jargon, consultants, none of the stuff we could afford to actually.
I think a lot of marketers want to make sure everyone thinks they're very, very smart.
Bang. Yeah. Exactly. And now I'm the opposite here, where it's like I just look at all these cool things I found and I just want to share them with people, right? And fine. I was that nerd. You know how people collect Snapple facts? I collect like little marketing facts, right?
I don't know if I want to hang out with a person who collects Snapple facts. But digital marketing facts, that's fine. We can continue.
It's horrible when we're going out to dinner and my friends are like looking at a regular menu and I'm like, hey, you know why they don't have currency symbols here? It's because currency symbols make you believe that you're spending money versus if there's nothing there, it's just numbers, blah, blah, blah. And they're just like, Chirag, we just want to eat food, man. Stop, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, so for the last 8 years, I've been working with some of the world's largest corporations down to some mom and pop shops over the last 8 years to kind of develop this framework called the Brand Clarity Framework. And the idea is, can I get you out of chaos and into action? Most of the time, brand owners, sort of business owners, entrepreneurs, they know what they want to do. They just get caught up in all the thousands of possible different things they could do.
Yeah, I was literally just on stage talking about this. It's like data is so relevant. It's just available all the time.
Yeah.
But like, what do you pay attention to? What actually matters? That is very difficult to work out on your own. Very difficult.
Often not a lack of opportunities. It's an overabundance of them.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so what my framework does is it's all about let's get you from chaos to action. It's a 3-step process. Step 1, let's simplify your message. What's your core brand going to be? And we call those your brand echoes. When someone's talking about you, what are the words you want them to echo back to you?
Yeah.
Right. The second part is let's identify the stories that you want to be able to tell. Because we don't connect to words or statistics, we connect to stories. And then lastly is like, how do we build marketing strategies that find the best time to incorporate those stories and words in a way that feels platform agnostic? Doesn't matter whether you're on website, Instagram, in person, whatever. Can we find a way to be able to set up marketing strategies that work across everything?
Let's double click into that because I owned a storytelling agency for years. I've always been very much aligned with what you're talking about, that like human connection matters more than anything. Like I think marketers should be treating computer screens like campfires, right? Like it's like, how do we get engaged with people? But what I'm most interested in about what you said is the idea that like we all have this expectation because of Amazon, because of all of these different, websites that have catered to our own unique snowflake custom like experience. Like we want to have that like red thread of a story that follows us where we go. So like, can you share some examples maybe of what that looks like in action when people take a really compelling story and they make it platform agnostic and they make it fit the context?
Absolutely. So let's start at the front, right? This idea of echoes, right? What do you want people to say about you? I mean, it can be something fun and quirky, like Heinz, right? Heinz ketchup.
Yeah,
they have 3 words they want you to know. Red, slow, 57.
Yeah.
Right? Red is a certain quality of ketchup, slow, it's certain thickness, and 57 varieties. So their marketing tends to be unique ways to remind you of that, fun ways. Let's come out with a website that takes 57 minutes to load, all red loading screen. Red, slow, 57, right? Let's partner up with Waze in Canada. If you're stuck in traffic and it's red and you're going at a certain speed that matches the bottle, like the ketchup should come out of the bottle, let's give you a coupon, right?
Yeah.
A puzzle set, 570 pieces, all red, slow red, 57.
All right. So, okay. I hate ketchup. I hate waiting in traffic and I hate waiting for 57 minutes. So I'm going to challenge you to come up with another example where I'm not already mad going into it, because this sounds great, but I need to be convinced further.
So that's the fun, quirky side of it, right?
Yeah.
Now let's get a little more serious. Story goes that UNICEF a couple years ago did a study in the UK and found that a large percentage of adults had no idea that UNICEF did any work with kids. That's surprising because UNICEF is for kids. That's like their core mission, right? And so one of the ways that they tackled this, they were like, okay, words that we want people to associate with us, the echoes, are children, for the children, for the children. And so in their ad campaigns, every single poster that came out after that had their slogan, for every child, clean water, for every child, education. And it was just being very deliberate about the words that we want people to use. We're going to put them everywhere because you as an individual, if someone comes up to you and asks you about me, I'm trusting that you as an individual who has a million other things going on, your own biases, 1,000 things that you're looking at right now, are going to remember the words I want you to use. Or I can continuously give you those words and drill them into you to the point where you echo them back to me.
I think it's like at this stage.
And no, please challenge me. I mean, people like you are who I want.
No, like this is really, really compelling stuff. And what I wanted to say was just like, I wanted to preface an observation with an acknowledgement that, like, at this stage, like Marvel, like the MCU, they're not doing too great. Like it's not as good as it used to be. But in the earlier days when the Avengers were first happening and all that, like,
you hit it right on the dot.
There is so much power in the way that they both told the story right now.
Yeah.
Like, what is the objective of this movie? And connected it to the broader world that they're in. And like, that's exactly what you're describing with the UNICEF campaign, right? And so it's like, I'm super interested in the ways that we can creatively tell stories. Again, I know that if you're cool, you are going to talk crap about MCU and how it's easy to go like too far in that direction. But like, that's a really great example of why I think that kind of storytelling works in particular. It's the same reason like why kids love Star Wars, even if the movie they're watching sucks, right? Because it's just like, we are part of the world and we understand that.
No, you hit it right on the dot. I'm getting excited. So, I mean, but that's such an amazing segue into the second part, right? Now that you have your words, right? You can't just, someone says, hey, what do you do? You can't just shout words at them, right? You tell the stories. So in my research, I've identified 8 different, what I call resonant stories. There's the story types that help you resonate with different parts of your audience.
Okay.
And one of them is your world building stories, right? Where you tell me about the world that you've developed. And that could be very simple as like, very creative, like as the MCU, where you're making up an entire ecosystem or a universe. Or like Barbie does really great, right? Barbie's great at advertising to children, getting them to believe in that Barbie can live all these different lives.
Sure.
Parents are then buying the same product, just packaged in a different way.
And no part of that is like, it's hard to reconcile. It just makes sense.
Exactly. Or it can be realistic. Like there's a really great a nonprofit that I was working with recently called Indiaspora, right? And they try to highlight the South Asian diaspora, what they're doing all around the world and everything. And like most nonprofits, right, you could take the route of just going out there and talking about what you do. And what they did is they came out with a report where they highlighted all the key wins from anyone of notable South Asian like descent in a report and highlighted that. And so a lot of their campaigns are just highlighting that report as opposed to what they do. And it's a great way because people get interested in that world that, wow, I didn't know all these things. There's an entire universe of information out there. Let me dig deep. Oh, thanks for being my guide into that world.
Yeah.
That's an easy way for the nonprofit to stand out.
Yeah. I mean, I literally, I feel weird that I'm saying this again in the second episode of the podcast today where I've made this reference, but I've been thinking a lot this year about what one of my marketing and writing heroes, Ann Handley, said last year at the B2B marketing forum in Boston. And her whole thing was like, okay, we can all like produce content easier than ever before now. Like we can actually get the message out there just effortlessly.
Yeah.
But that means that like you've got to get weird with it. Like you've got to embrace that
unique
part of you. And like that's always been my thing. It's just like I'm not gonna. I want to just be as honest as I can about what I find interesting and what I like, and like that is something that I think is really powerful about what you're talking about. The idea that like you're going to encourage people to ask like, what is your world and where are you in it? I just think it's so important for marketers who are listening right now to take away from this that people aren't interested in what you think is like the polished marketing message that you have workshopped. They're interested in connecting with another human being, and probably even the embarrassing problems that you're dealing with in a given industry are ones that others are dealing with and will feel seen if you can report. So
absolutely,
yeah, I love that. I love that idea of like lifting other people up along the way, because it's super, super important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no better example than, if you really want to see this, is Duolingo and Scrub Daddy. Right? I mean, 10 years ago, if you told a marketing director we're going to have a video where two, like a sponge and a bird, have babies and stuff, right? Like, they'd be like, you're insane.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But now, I mean, it's easy to dismiss these things because they sound like funny, haha, whatever. But this works. Why? Because this is showing it starkly reminds the audience that there is a person behind the social media account.
Yep.
There's someone who's just as funny as I am. Oreo, I think there was a Super Bowl. I'd want to say the 2013 Super Bowl, but I'm not. Don't quote me on it. Where like the power went out. Oreo.
Oh, the Oreo. Yeah.
Right? You saw it, right?
You can still dunk in the dark.
Exactly. Right?
I used to use that in the presentation, which is why I remember it. But it's very powerful stuff.
It seemed so simple. It was a tweet, right? But it went on to become so powerful, and it was such a great, it was one of the first early examples, right? It reminded you, like, oh shoot, there's a guy or a girl sitting right behind that screen. This is just as funny as I am.
Well, and you know, I happen to know about this, so it's funny that you brought it up. But like, that's another thing to be thinking about. Actually, a brand like that, they're not going to let someone just tweet that out. But they were prepared, and they decided, instead of spending money on a Super Bowl commercial, they spent money on a suite where they put all the decision makers who needed to be there for their messaging in one place. So they were able to do that because, like, even though they have some horrible bureaucracy of 10 people that needs to approve something, they're all in the same place.
I love that. I had no idea. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so that's the stuff that you don't think about as a marketer. Like, okay, so you're saying that you could never get it approved to do that. Well, make it that way. Like, figure out a way to set things up to make it easier for you to do your job. That's such a great story.
Yeah, no, it's such a great story. And I had no idea. I'm gonna look into the sweet thing.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. And they got probably more business out of that one tweet than all of the. I mean, at the time, I think it was like $2 million per spot.
That's
if you had a commercial. It just goes to show you that creativity is everything.
Absolutely.
All right, so I know you got to get going. You got to get on stage here in just a few minutes, but tell us where we can find you online, where people are interested in following you.
So basic home of mine right now is chiragspeaks.com.
Okay.
CHIRAG speaks.com. We're on social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram as well. And if you ever want to talk about booking or having me come and working with your business on this workshop and all, it is chirag@chiragspeaks.com.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Chirag. Always a pleasure.
It was such a pleasure.
Stay tuned. We'll have more coming from DigiMarCon Mid-Atlantic later today.
Yeah.